If you don't know, what extended deterrence is, just as like a context setting up here, it's the promise to use nukes on behalf of a nation that doesn't have nukes if they're attacked with nukes by somebody else. Okay? So it's inherently incredible, not believable. What are the odds that you're going to use nukes against some enemy country because they used nukes against a country that's not you? Like, the stakes of nuclear war are so high, they're existential. You would probably not do that. Maybe you do it, probably not. It's not rational to do it, right? And so extended deterrence is about the promise of doing that irrational thing. What we call extended deterrence, extended nuclear deterrence, is never primarily about an enemy. And it's always primarily about mollifying or appeasing a client state, an ally. Not just a client state, but like specifically the warmongers and the militarists and the warhawks within the client state. Typically the conservatives within a client state. And why am I mentioning this? The State Department issued a press release, Government of the USA and Government of Japan, guidelines for extended deterrence. Okay, this is some bland fanatic shit. Super fucking boring. Blah, blah, fucking blah, blah, blah.
It helped us to lay out a framework for the coming year and into the future. This framework will include enhancing alliance capabilities across all domains, evolving our roles and missions to reflect Japan's growing ability to contribute to regional peace and stability, and optimizing our alliance force posture to strengthen deterrence.
Boring, nonsensical, fuzzy vocabulary. This is just ordinary business. The State Department and the Pentagon issue statements about meetings like this all the time. Every year, both sides are having these extended deterrence dialogues. Extended deterrence, because it's this thing that's inherently incredible, and because it's primarily about mollifying the client state, it is basically this like grammar for national security hawks in their respective countries to come together and then justify or paper over whatever it is they want to do. They come up with new force posture plans. They come up with new basing arrangements. They come up with new investments in the latest fucking missile or reasons to increase the defense budget. As a package, it's just militarism. It's not making the world safer. It's not making anybody more secure. It is heightening regional security dilemmas in Asia. They're doing all this on the justification of deterrence. The grammar of extended deterrence, right? This is the framework, which is a false, empty, hollow framework, but it's like it is the grammar, literally. It's how they structure their justification to do whatever they will. And these justifications sound the same over time and boring as fuck over time, the same way over and over and over. Every year, it sounds like that same boring shit. That's a way of like excluding normal people from the conversation. It's also mind numbing, literally, in the sense that it has vacated from the dialogue any kind of critical, serious thought. It's not a real justification to say we need missiles because deterrence. We need to threaten nukes because deterrence. We need to promise nuclear umbrella or send nuclear bombers because deterrence. That's a hollow word. What are you talking about? What are you deterring? If the situation is a security dilemma, and it is, then talking about deterrence is the language of aggression and violence. It's the language of militarism. So the extended deterrence dialogue is not a solution in search of a problem. It's a solution that creates the problem that it claims to respond to, which is fucked. I was like literally personally the brainchild of the Pentagon's extended deterrence dialogues with South Korea and Japan. I wasn't the only one involved in setting them up and running them. It was my fucking idea. That's why they started in 2010. I was the guy that came up with this. I have some laments about that, reservations or whatever. But my reasoning at the time, if you don't remember 2010, North Korea had attacked South Korea twice that year. South Korea was determined to retaliate, and so our role as patron, as ally, was to bridle and restrain South Korea from military retaliation against North Korea, right? So we were trying to prevent World War III on the Korean Peninsula. And South Korea was a conservative government at the time. South Korea was determined to retaliate. So how do we bridle them? How do we mollify them? Well, one of the key ways that we did that was to offer them discussions on extended nuclear deterrence, right? This was basically a way to get them to not escalate the existing crisis that we were in. It was a way of managing a real crisis in real time. So it was primarily about South Korea initially. Japan got roped in and got its own extended deterrence dialogue, because you cannot talk about extended deterrence with South Korea and then not do the same thing with Japan, because they are both recipients of the American nuclear umbrella. And so what one gets, the other wants, you know? And at that time, this is esoteric history shit, but at that time, the US had just come out with the Nuclear Posture Review, which was kind of like this public statement about our nuclear strategy. And it had emphasized that we were going to consult with allies about extended deterrence, or I can't remember what the exact language was. But over the years, what these dialogues became, they're basically these rubber stamp mechanisms. When the Minister of Defense and the Secretary of Defense get together to talk extended deterrence, it's this mechanism to rubber stamp nuclear bomber deployments, or to justify, to say that allies want America's $1.7 trillion nuclear modernization project, laundering the status quo, a status quo that makes everyone less secure and that is more dangerous net. If we turned off these dialogues, there would not be greater risk of war in the East China Sea. The risk of that is already low and manageable. And the best way to manage it is to have stable, peaceable relations with China. You know, there's nothing that would manage risk better than that. Expressions of militarism. It's not making anybody more secure. Normal people have no way to talk about this stuff or to understand this stuff because it's boring as fuck. And the words that they use, the vocabulary, is all jargon that doesn't have stable meanings. Keep in mind that when you see our governments celebrating extended deterrence, whatever, it's rubber stamping the defense policy preferences of national security hawks. It is not doing anything to make anyone more secure. Deterrence is not the reason that China has not attacked Japan. China has not attacked Japan because it doesn't have reasons to attack Japan. And militarism and militarist policies increase the risk that China would have reasons to attack Japan.